All right, man. Back to it again. Another one. We got to go ahead and listen to my guy Peterlin, man, and my guy Wilson, man. Nick Wilson, man. Afternoon Drive and the Fan, man. That's 92.3 The Fan. Shout out and courtesy of them boys, bro. Let's go ahead and load up the tape immediately. What they talking about?
Is Zach Jackson. Welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. How we doing?
I mean, we're really haggling over some really mid quarterbacks, and this feels like a lower bar than usual when we're talking about mid quarterbacks, Zach. So we're really good.
Well, it does feel like a movie that just plays on repeat, right? Every situation is different, and trying to get different layers of it matters. I think 62 quarterbacks started games last year, right? 12 times since 1999, the Browns have had at least 3 starting quarterbacks, including in each of the last 3 years. So this position does matter, and there aren't a ton of great ones in the world, and there probably aren't, depending on what your number is, 16 to 25 guys who really are starters that can win games. But, the math is off. So you have to develop them, and I think that they really want to develop Shedeur Sanders. I think you have to look at guys who are available who haven't developed properly for some reason, who still might have some upside. Everybody's trying to do that. A guy who was dismissed 6 times just won the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know where this will go. But if you value, like Malik Willis, you look at this like a rare situation that a player like this would be available. And if you can't get him...
A rare situation that a player like this would be available. Brother, he hasn't played that much football. He had a decent game against the Ravens where they lost. That's the only good thing you guys are going off of as far as Malik Willis. A rare time where a talent or a quarterback like this is going to be available. Stop it. Then you're talking about we need to explore bringing in project quarterbacks. We have a project quarterback. We have 2 project quarterbacks, if you're being honest. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Why do we need to bring in another quarterback with all the questions in the world behind him? We don't. Stop the cap.
Or you don't think that the time is right for him, then you better look hard at Anthony Richardson and these other guys, because there's...
Anthony who? Bro, you tripping. Anthony Richardson? Man, go ahead.
Some upside there, and it's just too important a position to not keenly evaluate and try to go after every realistic avenue that might lead you to where you've been trying to go for like 70 years.
All right, tell us how you got to the idea that Malik Willis is plan A for the Browns.
Well, Jonathan, he's the number 1 free agent. He has taken a huge leap over 2 years. He was always a developmental player at a position of great importance and a position that, you try to develop guys. He's only 2 years older than the guys you'd be looking at in the draft. And you always pointed to this year where you landed on 6 and 24, and there's no sure thing. So you hired a head coach who publicly values a mobile quarterback and was on the other sideline when Malik Willis played the best game of his very short NFL career last year. And I just don't see there's any other way that he would be anything other than plan A. So can you get him? They have to try to find that out. But the way I look at it is they're one of 3 or 4 realistic teams. So you at least have a seat at the table, and in 10 or so days, we're going to know if they can get him or not.
So with that, I think that kind of led me right where I was thinking, which is, all right, if he's option A for the Browns, where do the Browns...
Okay, option A for the Browns. So in getting Malik Willis, what are you going to do to get Malik Willis? You're going to have to give up draft capital, and you're going to have to pay him some bread. They're talking about he's looking at anywhere between 15 at the very minimum, and people are talking about upwards to $50 million per year. You already got a quarterback on roster for $46 million every year. What are we talking about? So then what are we going to do? Give up draft capital in the 27 draft that's supposed to be elite, and this year's draft where you have what? The 5th or the 6th pick and the 24th pick. So what are you going to do? Give up one of those first-round picks in this year or next year's draft for Malik Willis, an unproven commodity, someone that hasn't done anything in the league, worth you giving up? Hell, I wouldn't even give up a 4th-round pick for him. I'm good. I'm Gucci. I'm going to rock out with who I got with. It don't make sense, man. Let him keep going, though.
Browns rank on his options? Because I know Arizona's supposed to be in the mix. That
His
some of
options.
the other teams like
Okay, I was about to let him rock. His options, Buddy is just looking for whoever's going to give him the most bag. If somebody's dumb enough to hand him $50 million a year or what have you, and give him an extended contract, more than a 1-year deal, a prove-it contract, somebody that's going to give him a 3 to 5 year contract, giving him at least $30 million a year. Yeah, if somebody's foolish enough to do that, for sure. But I would hope that the Browns aren't dumb enough to do that. That makes no sense.
who's kind of seen as the front runner for Malik Willis?
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to, right? And that's why we're talking about it here. The direct connection is Miami, who just hired a head coach and a GM from the Packers organization. Arizona is a team in need. Miami is a team in need. What is Pittsburgh going to do? People are whispering about Atlanta. Maybe the Jets wait a year. Maybe Miami waits a year. Maybe Minnesota's in. Maybe Minnesota can't afford to be in. So if, that's 6 or 7, and if some of them are out for the reasons I just named, that puts the Browns, to me, in the top 3 or 4.
You know what these tight ends is, how many years this would end up being for Malik Willis? Like, obviously, ideally for any team that takes him, you want fewer years because then you can cut bait quicker if it doesn't work out and it was just a trial balloon and it was what it was. Mm-hmm. But realistically, is he getting anything more than 3 years? Is it going to be 2, 3, 4, 5? What do you think gets it done?
Yeah, it's probably going to be a 3-year deal, and it's going to be a hefty commitment. What the Browns do is backload money.
Okay. Now, you guys all last offseason screamed the quarterback is in 26. So we were looking at this draft class that's coming in right now, and it's kind of depleted at this point. But at the beginning of the year, we were looking at Nussmeier. We were looking at all these different guys, Lenore Sellers, people like that were leading the campaign as far as being the number 1 through 10 picks, as far as quarterbacks and anything, as far as draft order. So when you take that into account, you're talking about 26 was the draft class. Now 26 is not the draft class. So obviously we're looking at 27 when you have the likes of, once again, somebody that I'm not a big fan of, but someone that is going to be brought up a lot and everybody is going to think about, Arch Manning. You got all those guys that just went back to school. You got the kid from Oregon. You got the kid from Ole Miss. You got all of these guys heading back. And there's going to be another loaded, class. So at that point, you're going to give up 3 years to Malik Willis, because when you give him a 3-year deal, you're not cutting bait after 1 year. So you're not going to go get a top quarterback the next year. So you're eliminating yourself from being able to draft quarterbacks in the upcoming drafts, and you're giving away money and picks on a guy that's not proven. The guy, literally, you got the exact same thing with Shedeur Sanders, somebody that's unproven, a lot of upside potential, and you wonder what they can do when they're given the right situation and the right pieces around them, right? That's Shedeur Sanders. Stop playing with me with this silliness, man.
What you have to do here is backload money. If you sign him, you're saying it's not going to go the way Justin Fields went, right? Where he played on a cap number of $6 or $8 million last year and is now going to play. There's now going to be left on 23 to go. The Browns have done this dance before. The Browns are paying Watson for a long time after this year. I know that, right? But you can't look at it like it's going to fail. It probably is going to come down to contract structure for this. And again, I don't know that they'll get anywhere other than the top 3. But I just view them as being in the top 3, and I just view this as clearly the best option for right now.
All right, Todd Monken made some interesting headlines on the Combine row here when he said that for his birthday he got this package. He thought it was from his wife, and it was a porcelain horse head, and it was from Shedeur. Is this the biggest warning sign we've had that Shedeur might not be it?
I did see a clip of that. There's a lot of other things going on. I'm just glad we have a coach that's willing to talk like a human in front of a microphone here in Cleveland.
Yeah, that's a good thing. A little bit of a brown nosing job by Shedeur, though. I like Shedeur. It was a little bit of a you barely know the guy. You get him a birthday present?
I would just say that since March of 2022, every single thing that's happened in and adjacent to the Browns quarterback room has been absolute bizarre world stuff. So why wouldn't the quarterback be sending the new coach a porcelain horse head and we'd be on the radio talking
What does
about
he think the end game is? Is he like, of course he's going to give me the starting quarterback job now. I was when they gave him a birthday present.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Todd Monken's family has horses or something. I don't know, because I did not know him well at all in his previous year here. So, like I said, I just know that this just spins on and on and on. And their goal right now has to be to try to stop it. And they need linemen, and they need receivers, and they need those guys to play well to support.
Oh my goodness! You just said you need linemen and you need receivers, and you need those guys to play well. Well, you're not going to get linemen and receivers to play well if you can't pay for new ones. You need 5 offensive linemen, not one. You don't need just a left guard here, or you might need a new center. You don't know. You need all 5 positions on the offensive line. And you're wanting to bring in an unproven quarterback? Behind what line? Can we go ahead and solidify the line and receivers first, please? That would make sense. That's like trying to row a boat, but your boat got holes in it. And you worried about smoothing out your oars, making sure your paddles is good. You got to leap, fuzz.
Whomever the quarterback is going to be. But if they're ever going to get out of this constant cycle, and if they're ever really going to return to relevance, they've got to get the quarterback right. And they would prefer to do it sooner than later because they have a truly elite defense right now.
Zach, you said you didn't know him particularly well when he was here, obviously, under Freddie Kitchens 2019. And Freddie obviously dominated a lot of the stories and a lot of the headlines and everything like that. Why is that? Why did that happen? Usually, with someone like yourself or people that, around the team a lot, you get to know the offensive coordinator, I would think at least somewhat of a relatively close nature, or at least you see him for once a week on Thursdays when they talk. What happened? Yeah. What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, he was here 11 months, and he did Thursday press conferences, and other than that, there was just no interaction that I can remember. That's just how it went. Usually the coaches we know are here for multiple years, and you mingle with them at the combine or on a road trip or, standing around before or after practice. But when people are only here 1 year, the window is limited, and Todd Monken was not a happy camper because he was the offensive coordinator putting together game plans that Freddie was going to Sundays and calling them Freddie's game plans, not the one they had worked on all week. So we didn't know him at all. I'm not going to say vivid memories, but 2 months ago, if you just said, what do you remember about Todd Monken, I would have said the most miserable Thursday quarterback press conferences ever, because he was absolutely miserable. And that's what it was. That was a long time ago. He and the organization obviously are on the same page about that being a long time ago and being in the past. He's the head coach here now, and he's like, 5 shots of caffeine and ready to go. But it's only February, so nobody's going anywhere yet.
Zach, probably the biggest, most high-profile offensive lineman, Tyler Linderbaum of the Ravens. They've said...
All right, man. Let's go ahead and wrap it up and bring this plane right back to what we were talking about in the beginning as far as quarterbacks, man. So, right here I'm looking at it. Shedeur average annual salary right now is $1.16 million a year. Now, you got to think, he's on his rookie contract. So, you have him for 3 years right now before you have to re-up or even think about re-ing up on that contract. So, you could take a flyer on Anthony Richardson, Malik Willis, any of those guys. You're going to have to pay them more than you're paying Shedeur. Absolutely. So, you're going to be paying them at least $5-6 more million a year. With Malik Willis, it's looking like at least 20 more a year that you're going to be paying him. With the same amount of upside, the same amount of question marks as far as career, what they can do, whether they'll be good or not, whether they're a franchise guy, they have the exact same amount of questions. So you want to come in, you would rather just go ahead and pay for the same amount of risk that you have in-house right now. It makes no sense. 0 sense. Y'all let me know in the comments, man, what y'all think about that, man. Let me know who you would rather have. Would you rather have Malik Willis, Richardson, one of those young dudes that they talking about drafting, or would you rather have the risk man, Shedeur Sanders, bro? Y'all let me know down below. We up out of here.